Hey, what's up, guys? John here. I believe that life is going to become a prison for those that are not aware of what's happening right now in society in the next 3 years. I think the next 3 years are going to be the most important years of your entire life and my life. All of our lives, everything is all based on what happens in the next 36 months. And let me explain a little bit what's happening right now because I think a lot of people don't understand. And then I'm going to share with you where we're headed as a society and what you can do about it. So in 1985 to 2020, this article came out February 20th, 25th of 2020. And it kind of shows you, where the cost of living versus typical wages of a male worker, where this actually went over the last 36 years, 37 years, right? And so in 1985, you could be an everyday guy, get a basic job. You could buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, right? Have 2 cars, have a wife or have a husband, have 2 kids, send them to college, live a good life, right? Vacation once a year, maybe go to the Caribbean. Like that. Now you can't do that. Make $250,000 a year, you still can't do it. You have to make $500,000 a year, right? What's happening? The middle class is getting absolutely eroded. It's crazy. It really is crazy because I think we're getting numb to it because we're just getting used to things just costing so much more. Everything is just costing more. Everything is harder. But what's going to happen is it's going to be concerning, right? What I think is going to happen is I think that as we step into the coming few years, the people that are not prepared, that don't understand what's going to happen, are those people that are going to be forced on subsidies, on universal basic income, right? And a really good way to look at this is imagine you're a girl at a bar. Some guy approaches you, wants to buy you a drink, but you think the guy's a weirdo, he's a creep. You don't want to get a drink from this guy. You know he has a motive, right? Some type of ulterior motive. Right? What do you think is going to happen when the universal basic income or stimulus program rolls out? I believe what's going to happen, and it's not if, it's going to roll out. The reason being is because if we look at the actual debt levels in America with 1.5 trillion in auto loans, 1.7 trillion in student loans, we have over a trillion, 1.1 trillion in credit card debt. Personal debt is through the roof, almost $92,000 per citizen. I mean, it's crazy. The debt levels are insane, and we have rising gas prices and inflation going through the roof. If they do not bring in some type of universal basic income or something to help people, it's going to turn into like an absolute war zone in this country over the next couple of years. So they're going to do it, no doubt about it. Even had Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, all these people pumping this idea just a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, saying that this is going to be required. It's going to need to happen, right? Now we're at this point where they're going to have to do something, right? And so what I think is very likely to happen over the coming few years is I think interest rates are going to continue to rise, meaning that the cost of the debt that people had is going to get more expensive to service. And people are going to require and demand this universal basic income, right? And as they do this, people that are living on fixed incomes and have savings, they're going to have a harder time simply making ends meet, right? So we're going to have this erosion from the top. People that are in retirement, they're going to be, in financial straits. And then people also that are heavily strapped in debt are also going to be in financial straits as food costs and everything goes through the roof, right? So this is what I think is going to happen. Here's what I think the solution is. So the solution is first understanding where we're going as a society. Where we're going is we're stepping into an era fully based on tech and automation and robotics, next 5 years, right? That's why I say the next 3 years is so damn important. It's going to be the most important years of our lives. The next 3 to 5 years, we're going to start to see, we're going to go through a drive-through, and it's going to be, robotics. We're going to see the person, it's not going to be a person, the machinery making burgers and or chicken fingers or whatever it may be at a restaurant. It's going to be robotics. Everything's going to be robotics. And why? It's because cost of living is going so high that people are not going to be able to afford, business owners are not going to be able to afford to pay people a living wage. What are you going to pay someone $50 an hour to flip burgers? I don't think so. They're not going to do it. They're going to say, hey, I'll buy the machinery for 20 grand or 25 grand. And the machinery will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, will never get sick, will never sue me, will never have any problems. And I only need to buy 2 or 3 of them, and they can do the work of 10 Americans, right? And that's what they're going to do. They're definitely 100% going to do this. Even McDonald's, for example, they're investing in robotics and data systems in which they'll know your license plate and your facial recognition, understand the proper upsells and downsells when you go through a drive-through. Like, oh yeah, I want to get the number 1 or whatever, the Big Mac. Oh great, Mike, you want to upgrade to a Dr. Pepper? We can do it for this price. You want to add chicken nuggets for Sally? We can do it for this. Why don't you do this? They're going to upsell and downsell based on your facial recognition and your former spending habits. That's where we're going. It's pretty crazy, right? And so that I think that's going to become more clear in the next 3 to 5 years. And so we look at the U.S. population. What do we have? We have 330 million people. Average American reads at a 7th grade level. We have 157 million workers, right? And so I think half of those people are going to get replaced by tech in the next 10 years, eventually, right? So next 10 years, meaning that if we look at 1929, what do we have? The greatest, depression that we've ever had, 1929, 1933, we had 24 to 29% unemployment, right? What are we going to have when tech steps in? The unemployment rate is going to go to 40 or 50%. That's where we're headed, right? But the next 3 years, I believe what we're going to see is this slow erosion of the economy, the global economy. And so that's why I think it's the most important time ever, because during the next 3 years, there's going to be so many people that are, they may have money, or maybe they want to sell certain assets, or they need to do something. They're going to need to make decisions. And when people have to make decisions, it's a great time to be in business, because you can position your business as a solution to a decision that they have to make anyway, right? But you want to be in the right business. There's some businesses I think are going to be really stressed, such as imagine being in laminate floors or tile, or you're heavily dependent on shipping and distribution, right? You're heavily dependent on shipping and distribution when gas prices are going up and labor costs are going up, and consumers can't afford luxury items, right? They're going to be watching every single dollar that they spend. So if they're doing this, what are they going to do? They're more likely going to try to buy direct, from like a Home Depot, from a Lowe's. They're going to try to do whatever they can do to buy from a big box store to save as much money as possible, and then see if they can do the install, right? We're going to start to see more and more people cost cutting to make ends meet. And so when I'm looking at this, even like Morgan Stanley, they were saying it's an extraordinary moment. We have our first pandemic in 100 years. We have our first invasion of Europe in 75 years. We have our first inflation around the world in 40 years. When you look at the combination, the intersection of the pandemic, of war, of inflation, it signals the paradigm shift, the end of 15 years of financial repression, and in the next era to come, right? The next era. The next era, you want to be filthy freaking rich. Like, you want to have at least 7 figures, 8 figures, liquid, cash. That's what you need to have. Because what's going to happen is, as this system comes in with a universal basic income, as they start really, I believe, devaluing the currencies, what could happen is, if you're sitting on 50 grand, that 50,000 purchasing power might only be 20,000 in 3 years, right? But if you're sitting on 10 million, then it goes, to 3 million. You're still okay, right? This is why it's so important to think huge. And now we're seeing this, the modern day education system get exposed for being what I believe is not like a huge scam right now. Because people look at, for example, 1988, people went to college, right? How did this make any sense that college education tripled in price from 1988, as well as textbooks tripled in price? And now we look at, people went to school to be an accountant in 1988. They came out and made 50, 60 grand a year. Now people go to school to be an accountant. Maybe they make a little bit more, but they pay 3x for the education, right? 3x for the education. Now, a lot of these careers people are graduating with over the next 5, 10 years, they won't even be viable jobs, right? You're going to have tens of millions of Americans going to college or in college for careers that won't even be there, right? Everything is changing. The entire society, everything that we know about this world is greatly changing. And it's up to a smart entrepreneur like you to understand and ask yourself that hard question: am I in the right business, or am I in the wrong business? Because I believe it's a true sign of intellect and intelligence to be able to answer that question honestly. Because most people lie to themselves and they're saying, no, I'm the best, I'm great, I can do this, my industry is going to be amazing. But they knew deep down in their heart that they're in the wrong industry. This is the time to be honest and realize, your strengths and your weaknesses and your business, if it's the right thing or the wrong industry to be in, right? I believe that we're going to see online businesses do very well. I think businesses that can be delivered to, end consumer at very little cost, obviously that's going to do well, because you can outsource talent, you can bring down your cost, you have control. But if you are, let's say, in a traditional business model where you're banking on the post office, or you're banking on shipping and distribution, you're banking on third parties, and third parties end up flaking, or they end up continuing to increase rates on you, and then that ultimately impacts your purchasing power, or your basically ability to supply a affordable product to your customer, then they're basically going to shut you out of business, right? This is what's going to happen. They're going to continue increasing gas prices. They've already said this. it's not a theory. They've said that they're going to be, we're transitioning. So if we're transitioning and they're basically saying, hey, everything's going to get a hell of a lot more expensive for you and the consumer is going to have less money, then it's only common sense to kind of pivot now, right? This is what I think anyway. I believe that the biggest wealth transfer in modern day history is happening over the next 3 years. Smart people are going to have a lot of money over the next 3 years. They're going to use that money, and when things hit the fan, as they hit the fan, they're going to be investing it and investing it and investing it to build out a moat of safety and security for themselves and their family. As when tech comes and all this stuff comes, they have enough, purchasing power to be able to go the distance. Because imagine if you have, let's say, 10 million liquid, things hit the fan, maybe you have a business, maybe you invest in robotics yourself. Because everyone's going to be, every single industry, unfortunately, is going to be doing this. You're not going to have the option. Because let's say, for example, you own a sandwich shop, right? And you're selling your sandwiches at $15. And, your sandwiches at $15 because your labor costs are through the roof, right? Everything's through the roof. But then there's the person next to you that's selling sandwiches, but they're selling them for $3 because they've invested in AI and robotics and tech. And AI and robotics and tech, they bought them outright for 25, 30 grand, and it's working 24/7 on the clock, right? Who's going to get the most customers? Someone selling for $3, someone selling for $15, right? Especially when the customer only has $2, right? Everyone's going to go to the person for $3, and they're going to split a sandwich with somebody else because they don't have enough to even buy their own sandwich. That's unfortunately where the society is going. If we're being completely honest, 3 years. 3 years is why I think it's so important. Because over the next couple years, we're going to start to see the erosion. And that's why I think smart entrepreneurs right now are saying, okay, great, what are the biggest problems that I could solve? How can I supply the most value? Well, I think that the two best ways to look at business, there's a couple things. Obviously, health and love and happiness, and these are great products. A lot of businesses are sold around this, but also products in which you can help reduce one's lifestyle to make it a little bit easier for them today. And then second, how to help people make more money. If you can do one of those 4 things, you're going to be able to, I think, weather the storm better, and you're going to have a lot of potential to earn a lot of money to then, invest when things do hit the storm. I think it's coming though. If you have bad credit, you need help with your credit, maybe you want to start a business, cashnow.video. If you want to help, you need help on your YouTube channel. You want to scale a YouTube channel and online personal brand, cashnow.video. You want to invest in real estate when things hit the fan, cashnow.video. Subscribe. You're also subscribed to my second YouTube channel. It's going to be an interactive show and a podcast, and LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Everything's in the banner. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm spot on with a 3-year timeline? This 3-year timeline, I believe, is right on the money. 2025 to 2030, we're going to start to see the transition of American jobs going straight to robotics and tech. In the next 3 years, I think it's our responsibility, it's our duty as Americans, as individuals, to supply and protect our families, supply them with values, supply them with security. And the best way to do that is being forward-thinking entrepreneurs. Drop your comment below. Let's talk about it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.